A convicted murderer who escaped from a South Texas prison nearly 14 years ago has been added to the U.S. Marshals 15 Most Wanted Fugitives lists. Authorities are still searching for Jose Bustos-Diaz, 32, and are offering a reward of up to $25,000 for information directly leading to his capture. The U.S. Marshals Office said the man is still a significant threat after escaping the TDCJ Briscoe Unit in Dilley on April 6, 2010. Dilley is about 70 miles southwest of San Antonio. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison after he pleaded guilty in 2005 to murdering a woman whose body was found beaten and stabbed multiple times. Bustos-Diaz escaped with fellow inmate Octavio Ramos-Lopez after they cut a hole in the fence. The manhunt led authorities to a home in Reynosa, Mexico. Ramos-Lopez was captured and returned to the U.S., but Bustos-Diaz evaded arrest and has remained on the run since. U.S. Marshals Service Director Donald Washington said in a news release that the agency added Bustos-Diaz to the list because locating and apprehending this violent escapee is a top priority, and we will use every available resource to bring him to justice. After growing up inside the gangs of South Tucson, Arizona, Ruben Rodriguez was finally escaping that life and setting a new course. Rodriguez, 19, had found a good sales job at a jewelry store. He had to wear suits and a tie, and he was able to get people to buy, his mother Sandra Medina told CNN's The Hunt with John Walsh. He was really good at that. He was talking about going back to school. He was a people person, said his girlfriend, Yvette Jimenez. During high school in his single-parent household, Rodriguez joined a gang to fit in and gain protection. Getting caught with a small amount of drugs landed him in juvenile detention. He got out of detention when he turned 18. That's when he started changing, Medina said. Ruben didn't want to be involved with these people anymore. Meanwhile, a world away from Tucson's south side, in the eastern part of town, Anthony Burrows enjoyed a comfortable upbringing in a middle-class family with two parents. Burrows was a wannabe, according to observers. The Filipino-American passed himself off as being Hispanic, said Jen Rippey, a deputy U.S. Marshal who's been investigating the case for years. Burrows was enamored with the gangster life, Rippey said. He had a police record for theft and assaulting his girlfriend. From what I understand, he never treated her right. He had a temper and would hit her, she said. Anthony was also well known to always have a gun of some sort. When these two men's paths crossed at a house party on April 29, 2000, both their lives would drastically change forever. Outside the house, there was an altercation between Ruben and Anthony as Ruben was leaving, said Rippey. I was told that it was over a girl, said Melinda Ochoa, Ruben's ex-girlfriend. I was told that Ruben helped him up, gave him his hand and helped him up after the fight. And when Ruben was walking away, then he had shot him. Then Burrows took off into the desert, Rippey said, while Rodriguez staggered into the house and collapsed in the kitchen. People gathered around Rodriguez to help him, but it was no use, said Tucson Police Detective Tom Stewart. He was hit in the left shoulder. The carotid artery was gone. You can't live without one of those. When Rodriguez's mother got to the hospital, she was taken to a room where she was forced to undergo an agonizing wait to learn what had happened to her son. Finally, a detective and a doctor walked in, and they told me that my son was dead, and I didn't believe them, she said. I told them they were lying to me, that I needed to see Ruben, and they wouldn't let me see him. They wouldn't let me see my son. Prosecutors charged Burrows, 21, with murder, but just as police were preparing to arrest him, Burrows was able to board a plane in Phoenix and escape to the Philippines. Even though Burrows was gone, police continued to work the case. There were a lot of people giving misinformation, Stewart said. At a certain point over the years, you run out of people to talk to. The investigation stalled, Rippey said. It wasn't until 13 years later that Rippey found the break she needed to reignite the case. According to a confidential source in the Philippines, Burrows' mother in Tucson was sending him money there. Rippey obtained a warrant in 2014 to search Burrows' mother's home. After 14 hours of poring through her things, police found nothing until they got to the last few boxes. We discovered these letters that Tony wrote his mother from the Philippines, Rippey said. The general theme in all of them is, poor me. Anthony was very much alive and well and living in the Philippines. As a result, deputy U.S. Marshals have been sent to Manila to work with Philippines authorities to track Burrows. Burrows was last reported seen in Manila in May of 2014. We very much believe that Anthony's mother has tipped him off and drove him back underground, Rippey said. We also believe she is still financing him in some way, shape, or form. This is what I do. I chase fugitives. It doesn't matter. You can run as far as you want, for as long as you want, but eventually, we'll be there. Larry Chisum is a criminal, convicted felon from Arkansas, and a fugitive for many years. In 1978, he escaped from a Lonoke County jail and was never apprehended. He was placed on the wanted list of the U.S. Marshals and the FBI, and in 1990, he was featured on the television show Unsolved Mysteries, generating national notoriety that led him to flee again. He is considered armed and dangerous, but his whereabouts have remained unknown since 1990. Larry Porter Chisum was born on December 19, 1948, in Forest City, St. Francis County, the son of Millard Harry Chisum Jr. and Frances Louise Porter Chisum. Both were natives of Arkansas. Chisum's maternal grandfather was John Rosamond Jack Porter, mayor of Forest City for 10 years. Chisum graduated from Forest City High School. His yearbook lists him as a member of the Glee Club, choir, Latin club, and motorcycle club, and mentions that he did running laps. Chisum wore thick glasses and was reportedly a studious and intelligent student. After high school, Chisum enrolled in Memphis State University, now the University of Memphis, and eventually had plans to become a lawyer. In August 1968, he married Elizabeth Wirtz, born in Forest City. They lived in West Memphis, Crittenden County, at the time while Chisum attended school. In 1970, Chisum was drafted into the U.S. Army and served in Vietnam in a combat role. For his merits, he received 2 medals. In 1972, he returned to the United States and resumed his studies at Memphis State. Chisum apparently began committing serious crimes after he returned from Vietnam. His criminal record would eventually include drug trafficking, armed robbery, and kidnapping. Ironically, he was weeks away from completing his law degree when he was first arrested in 1974 for running a drug smuggling business. Authorities discovered that Chisum employed other students to transport drugs to Mexico. He was eventually arrested for armed robbery and distributing heroin. In July 1974, he was sentenced in Tennessee to 40 years in prison. For a time, Chisum was a model prisoner. He had a good rapport with inmates and guards and often acted as a mediator between the two. He even wrote for the prison newspaper. But in the late summer of 1978, Chisum made his first successful escape from prison. On September 13th, he and other prisoners were allowed to leave the prison under supervision at a bowling alley in Dixon, Tennessee, about 60 miles west of Nashville. At one point, Chisum and other inmates went to the bathroom. An outside friend had left a package of weapons for Chisum in the bowling alley. When a suspicious prison guard followed the inmates to the bathroom to check on them, Chisum pointed a shotgun at him. A gunfight ensued. Chisum wounded a guard, although he did not kill him, and Chisum himself was shot in the hand. To facilitate their escape, Chisum and 3 other prisoners held a bowling alley employee hostage until they were outside, then stole a car and drove the hostage to a nearby municipal airport. Their hostage was released, but Chisum and his gang hijacked a plane and its pilot and ordered the man to fly them to Arkansas. Because it was not prepared for the flight, the plane experienced problems in the air. As a result, the pilot had to make an emergency landing in Marianna, Lee County, on a dirt road. A local man drove to the plane to help the passengers, but his truck was stolen by Chisum. Chisum's gang soon broke up, and Chisum and another inmate traveled to Kentucky. The other 2 were captured by authorities not long after the plane landed in Arkansas. Apparently, Chisum was stopped on his way to Texas near Calico Rock, Izard County, just a few days after he escaped from the bowling alley. Once again, Chisum had stolen a truck and taken the owner hostage. Police pursued Chisum, who crashed the truck after a firefight in which he was wounded. Chisum was booked and jailed in Lonoke County. In September 1978, he was indicted on additional charges stemming from his escape and confessed to being guilty of the charges. He was sentenced in November, and the judge added another 30 years to the 29-year-old's already lengthy sentence. The Lonoke County Jail where he was being held was poorly secured. With the help of 3 inmates, 2 of whom had assisted him during his first escape from the bowling alley, he used a key to break through an air conditioning vent to enter a room where weapons were being held. Now armed, Chisum stole the vehicle from a guard and escaped. The 3 men who helped Chisum escape from jail were apprehended, but Chisum was never recaptured. Chisum's trail went cold after a few months. It was reported that he had robbed a bank in Cincinnati, Ohio, where he made off with $250,000 in cash without using a weapon or harming anyone. He ended up in New Orleans, Louisiana, where he lived with several women and did manual labor. In late 1979, he suffered a severe fall at a construction site and was hospitalized for weeks. After his hospital stay, Chisum moved to Mobile, Alabama. There he was involved with a woman named Linda Hicks. Hicks fled the state with Chisum, but because she missed her children, she soon returned home. She eventually spoke with authorities, but her information did not help them catch Chisum. The last time she saw him was in Mississippi. On the run, Chisum donated blood to earn extra money, and he reportedly gathered information to make false identifications by calling the parents of deceased children. It took 10 years before authorities found Chisum again. This time, he was in Charlotte, North Carolina. By then, he was living under the name Kenneth Lamar Brookins. He was married to a woman named Deborah, who had also taken the surname Brookins. Chisum and his wife lived a modest life in Charlotte. They were active campers and involved in their church. They were well known to their pastor, although details of their family life were vague, and they did not let people know exactly where they lived. Possibly, the family consisted of children at the time. On January 3, 1990, Chisum was featured in an episode of the popular television series Unsolved Mysteries. Chisum saw the broadcast live himself. Fearing recapture, he left town with his family in a van, not claiming a final paycheck at work. In December of that year, Chisum was spotted in Atlanta, Georgia, selling his van to a coworker. However, the man failed to register the vehicle for a year. By then, Chisum had disappeared. The last confirmed sighting of him was on December 4, 1990. Television programs continued to cover the Chisum story. In March 2021, Chisum was played by Pittsburgh actor Nick Pascal in an episode of the reboot of America's Most Wanted. Given how long Chisum has been missing, however, it is possible that he has died. It is also possible that he is still living the life of a fugitive under a false name, perhaps in another country and with his family.